Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. I am Big Italy 42. He is Josh Jefferson at BChad50. And we're talking about your action here for 4th of July, Independence Day, whatever you want to call it, and night games, of course. We're talking about fades and stacks, which teams you want to avoid the starting pitchers, which teams you want to stack against. And actually, this is a pretty good slate for stacking because there's quite a few pitchers that they're just not very good that you want to get a bunch of pieces of. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead and just go down the list from the top.
You got it.
All right, starting off, first game, 7:15, Milwaukee at Cincinnati. Jimmy Nelson against Josh Smith in this one. Jimmy Nelson, a DFS darling for some reason. A lot of people like to play him. He's had his moments where he has decent games, but more of a disappointment than anything more often than not, if you ask me. Not a guy that I'm a huge fan of. This is a big ballpark, of course, and I haven't seen the opening line here, but I think you've got it in front of you. I think it's actually a pretty nice total once again in Great American.
Yep, Pinnacle has it opening at 8.5 and basically a pick 'em, so they're expecting runs scored on both sides of this one. I'm certainly going to advocate stacking each side of it. Maybe not full-blown stack with the Reds because they don't necessarily have the lineup length that you look for. And they don't have a ton of left-handed bats, but guys like Joey Votto and Jay Bruce can really punish Jimmy Nelson's severe platoon split. You've also got Todd Frazier sandwiched in there, and we know what Todd Frazier does against righties at Great American Ballpark. So a lot of power there. Love that stack based on the fact that there is so much thump in that lineup that they do have a couple lefties to punish him. But again, it's one that I'm thinking probably a better FanDuel stack at that 1 through 4 than needing that full 1 through 6 on DraftKings. I think you can lop off the back end of that possibly. Maybe get creative with your stacks. If you are going to go the full stack, maybe do something like a wraparound. Hope that Billy Hamilton gets on and the rabbit gets to running, and then you can get him swatted in with one of these lefty bats behind him. So don't necessarily think you need 6, but I mean you can use it. But I really like the 4-person stack on FanDuel a lot in this case. And as far as on the other side of things, Josh Smith was very wild in his first start. Walked a number of batters, walked a number in his second as well. He's got 10 walks in 8 innings so far. That is not the way you want to go about business in the big leagues. Yeah. You walk that many batters, you're going to really get rocked. Doesn't have the type of stuff to compensate for that. That obviously puts the Milwaukee Brewers in play for a stack, even though they haven't been particularly good against right-handed pitching this year. They do have some power in their lineup. They do have a handful of patient hitters. Guys like Jonathan Lucroy, Carlos Gomez, Ryan Braun, Gerardo Parra, Adam Lind. They can all do damage at times. There's a little bit of speed mixed in there in the form of Parra. Gomez, and even Braun can still steal a base or two every now and again. So I really like that combination a lot. Gotta love the home run inflating nature of Great American Ballpark as well. So with the 8.5 total and it being a pick 'em, at least to open, you gotta like the odds of both of those teams scoring runs.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, like you said, not very many ballparks better than Great American for power, really from both sides of the plate. So expecting big things there. Should be a fun game to stack both sides of. Maybe one way to go on FanDuel, get yourself 4 hitters from each side, see how you can make that work out. You obviously could get a guy like Eugenio Suarez in there at that shortstop position. He steals a couple bags, I guess. Maybe we see Jonathan Lucroy get the holiday off, and we see Martin Maldonado in there, and it'll be easier to run. Never know. But either way, it'll be a fun game to stack. I'm with you there. Both sides in play for me. Next up, Minnesota at Kansas City. Mike Pelfrey against Joe Blanton. 2 guys who people have wanted to play that weren't terrible, and now we just realized that neither guy is any good, just like they are who we thought they were, especially Joe Blanton. I think Pelfrey's slightly better, but Joe Blanton, last start, got rocked at Houston, as some people expected he would. He was the guy that some people played, but Mike Pelfrey has a couple of negative games in his last 4 as well. Really, outside of that game against Milwaukee, hasn't been particularly good. So, once again, despite this being at Kansas City, it's a very stackable game. But as you know, it's really hard to stack teams like Kansas City because of how their lineup's constructed, especially on FanDuel where there's not any flexibility. In Minnesota, I mean, it's a team you can stack because Joe Blanton's not good, but there's really not a lot of bats that you want. I mean, and it's a righty, so you prefer it to be a lefty so you can get your Dozier and Plouffe. But I mean, I guess Torrey Hunter, Brian Dozier, all these guys, get them in your lineup. Maybe Eddie Rosario as well for some power. But gonna be, I don't know, it's gonna be a hard one to stack, but I don't mind either side either.
Yeah, I mean, it's opening at 8.5 with the over/under total. Joe Blanton checking in as a minus 158 favorite, so definitely liking the fact that he's at home. I'm guessing the odds makers are fans of that. Of the two teams, I definitely prefer stacking the favored Royals here, even though there is some issues with it. They don't have any huge boppers that really feel like must-get players. You got both Kendrys Morales and Eric Hosmer playing first base as long as both are healthy and in the lineup. So you have to pick one or the other, which always is creates an interesting dynamic for stacking these guys. They do have a nice combination of speed and high contact guys, which is nice. Like I said, you don't have that one thumper, but some of these guys can put a charge into the ball occasionally. Morales, Moustakas, Kane, and Hosmer, any of them can put a charge into it. In down order, you've also got Alex Gordon, who is miscast, hitting as low as he is in the order, but you got to like picking on Pelfrey. He's been bad against righties over the last 3+ years, has been better against them this year, but we're still talking about a guy who seeded a 359 WOBA to right-handed batter since 2012. So that's pretty exploitable, and then not very good against lefties either, allowing a 331 WOBA to them since 2012. So of the two, I like the Royal stack side of it just because you've got some speed mixed in there, and because they are a lineup that can put a hurting on you. And with an 8.5 total and a sizable betting favorite, uh, Vegas and odds makers are projecting them to score some runs. But as you said, grabbing some pieces of the other side, picking on Joe Blanton, even this new svelte Joe Blanton is pretty much the guy that we thought he was. Not very good, not really a big league quality pitcher. As I noted before his last start, there was something to like a little bit about his junk balling, but you can only get away with that so much. If hitters are able to fight off his secondary pitches, that barely cracking 90-mile-per-hour fastball is just a meatball for these guys to punish. So guys like Dozier, you like him better against a lefty than a righty, but he can put a charge into the ball. So guys like Dozier, Joe Mauer's not what he was, but he can still rip a line drive off of a bad pitcher. So you got to like him in his lineup spot. But they're just not the most stackable lineup. So while I like pieces, I don't really like stacking them. And if you're looking for power, Miguel Sano came up from the minors, big power hitter. Gotta like that. And Joe Blanton just doesn't miss a ton of bats. So anytime I can get a power hitter against a pitcher that pitches to contact like Blanton, you gotta like that.
Yeah, and he's min salary too, so you got to like that option there. And like we've mentioned this before with teams like the Royals and the A's that are tough to stack. You might as well, if you're stacking a bunch of teams, go ahead and get yourself a stack with Hosmer and one with Kendrys Morales, because obviously you don't have any competition that can get both guys, because no one can. So might as well get yourself exposure to both, because as we know, both guys can have big games. Just hard to tell which one's going to go off. So that's a strategy I like to employ a lot too.
I agree.
All right, next up, Miami at the Chicago Cubs. Jared Cozart pitching for Miami, and the Cubs.
Clayton Richard is
right.
interestingly. Don Roach was initially listed as the starter. Clayton Richard was acquired for cash considerations by the Cubbies and immediately thrust into the rotation. Clayton Richard, I mean, if you're not familiar with him, he's a lefty that doesn't have overpowering stuff. He's a big guy, so he looks like he should throw hard, and he looks like he should be just, overpowering hitters, but that's just not his game. He doesn't miss a lot of bats. And even pitching at Petco Park for many years with the Padres just was not an exceptionally good pitcher. The fact that he wasn't even in the big leagues to open the season kind of tells you a lot about the veteran 31-year-old hurler. Not anything too special. Worth stacking against, even though the biggest piece, the biggest lefty masher from that Marlins lineup is gone in Giancarlo Stanton. They do still have some pieces. The last time Richard was in the big leagues was 2003. Seated a 445 WOBA to 180 right-handed batters that he faced. So if you see any mixes of Marlins hitters that are right-handed, maybe a 3-hitter stretch, 4-hitter stretch, go ahead and stack that part of the lineup. You don't necessarily have to grab the 1 through 4 or 1 through 6 here, because we know that D. Gordon, left-handed, going to be leading off for them. Christian Yelich likely to hit up there, and we don't love the lefty-lefty. But guys like Marcell Ozuna, Jeff Baker, these guys are right-handed hitters who can punish below-average pitcher like Richard.
Yeah, Jeff Baker especially, really cheap, a guy I love to target against lefties. And then on the other side of things, Jared Cozart, He's a guy that keeps the ball on the grounds. He does a good job of that. 55.2% ground ball rate. I believe it was even higher last year, upwards of 60%. But not a strikeout guy, and he does walk too many batters, 9.3%. So it's definitely a guy that can be beat by these Cubbies. But as you know, this is a Cubs team that also likes to swing and miss a lot. So if I had to find what's going to give here, it's going to be obviously Jared Kozart's ground ball rate that's going to give, and the Cubbies are going to get to him. So they're going to be a really fun stack against, once again, a contact pitcher who, like, anytime you get a contact pitcher who also walks too many batters, only takes one mistake for your stack to start paying off, send one to the seats. And Anthony Rizzo or Chris Bryant, one of these type of guys. So I'm a big fan of that stack as well.
I agree. I mean, we're talking about a pitcher with a 4.57 FIP, 4.24x FIP, an ugly strikeout rate of just 14.8%, walk rate of 9.3%. Give me some pitch to contact pitchers against Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo. These guys can really punish baseball. So assuming Miguel Montero is catching Clayton Richard, you got another left-handed batter that can really hit the ball well against right-handed pitching. So I really like the Cubs stack. Switch hitting, Dexter Fowler at the top, a little power, a little speed. So this is going to be a popular stack, I think. And assuming we see the pitcher hitting in the 8th spot, as we often do for the Cubs with Joe Madden, the mad scientist, running things in Chicago, you've got the possibility of a wraparound stack with Addison Russell hitting 9th. Not your average 9-hitter, especially not your average National League 9-hitter, since that's usually reserved for the pitcher. But get that wraparound stack, maybe get yourself some unique exposure to the Cubs, because I do think that amongst stacks, they're going to be fairly popular just because Kozart doesn't miss bats, and everybody loves Rizzo and Bryant, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and that's a really good point there. And I know it seems like we're trying to stack every single game, and we're not really giving you any analysis other than just stack. But this next one here, not going to be that fun to stack. Philadelphia at Atlanta. Alex Wood against Kevin Correa. Alex Wood, a sizable favorite against a really bad Philly offense. In case you live under a rock and didn't know, this is a really bad offense. The worst in the league, arguably. Not. I don't think they're actually worse in the league against left-handed pitching, but still not a good offense by any means. So really tough to stack the Phillies, and you're really not going to against Alex Wood, because we've seen him be good, we've seen him be bad at times, but when he's got it going, he's got some really nasty stuff, coming off a really nice performance at Pittsburgh. I'm not stacking Philly here. And Atlanta, I mean, you can stack Atlanta, but who's your biggest bat now? Juan Uribe? I mean, there's just not a whole lot to like with that Atlanta team either.
Yeah, unfortunately, Freddie Freeman's hurt. It would be a much more interesting stack if he were not hurt, but that's obviously not the case. So that Brave stack, while it would be fun to pick on Kevin Correa, we like picking on bad pitchers. The Braves just don't have the bats to do it with. Guys like Cameron Maybin are interesting, but beyond that, I mean, you've got basically slap singles hitter at this point, Nick Markakis. He isn't what he was. There's not a lot of thump in the lineup. There's not a ton of speed to get excited about. I do like Alex Wood. A very good pitcher at home in his career, where he owns, lost my sight line here, owns a 46.1% ground ball rate at home, keeps the ball on the ground, and has a nice strikeout rate of 27.6% at home, drops to 18.3% on the road. So I don't know if it's the batter's eye, what it is about pitching at Turner Field, but there's certainly something to this. We have a pretty large sample size at this point, 151.2 and 2/3 innings thrown at home, 191.1 and a third innings thrown on the road. So something about pitching at home. Maybe he just likes the home cooking there. We like Alex Wood at home. He's a big betting favorite, and you get a strikeout boost when he's there. So certainly not stacking the Phillies against him. And as nice as it normally would be to stack against Correa, I'm with you, man. I don't see enough there in that Braves lineup to advocate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So next game up, another game you're not going to want to stack. The Mets at the Dodgers. Zach Greinke hosting Matt Harvey and the terrible Mets. You're obviously not stacking the Mets really against anyone, but especially a guy like Zach Greinke. But you and I discussed before the show briefly that Matt Harvey, not a pitcher you want to go out of your way to target, but if you want a contrarian stack, a way to go under the radar. He has had some pretty bad performances a couple times, got crushed by San Francisco. So when he's bad, he's really bad. So I think that a Dodgers stack, best team in the league against righties, and it's not even close, is a viable option in a couple tournaments here.
Yeah, I mean, when Harvey's had issues this year, it's been with the long ball. We know that Los Angeles' ballpark suppresses run scoring, but actually enhances home runs to lefties and righties. And they've got some boppers in the lineup. We've got guys like Adrian Gonzalez and Jacques Peterson that can really rip the baseball and find the seats. So Harvey's going to be a very popular pitcher to own today, and that makes the Dodgers an interesting low ownership stack with power. And if you're looking to be contrarian, this is the place to do it. Again, if you're only trotting out a couple of GPP lineups, not going to advocate picking on Matt Harvey with one of those. But if you're somebody who's sticking in a number of lineups, if you've got the bankroll flexibility to stick in stack after stack. This is one that could shoot you to the top of the standings just because it's going to be low owned and because it has power in it. And a lot of people are going to be on Harvey. So if this Dodgers stack goes off, it's going to catapult you towards the top of the standings. But again, not for the one, not for the faint of heart, and two, not for those who are only sticking in a couple lineups. But if you're playing, 5, 6, 7 lineups or well met beyond that, consider yourself a Dodger stack because, as you said, when Harvey's been bad, it's been bad. We saw the Pirates start. We saw the Giants start. Gave up something like 8 home runs in a 4-game stretch at one point. Two of those, the 2 7 earned run clunkers were bookending that home run binge off of Harvey. So, again, not saying that Harvey's a bad pitcher, not suggesting that he's going to melt down, but we've seen it happen, and not that long ago. So, definitely an interesting contrarian stack.
Yeah, certainly. And then as you look at the next game, Angels at the Rangers, Hector Santiago versus Wandy Rodriguez, 2 pitchers that are just okay. I mean, take them or leave them. Neither one great. Each one has their weaknesses and their strengths. Hector Santiago, for instance, a guy with a big fly ball rate, one of the highest fly ball rates in the league, 52.7. Obviously, what comes with that is more home runs than you like to allow, 1.24 per 9. He does have a strikeout rate of 22.5, which is solid. But this is also a Texas team that has some power, but like you were mentioning earlier, not a lot of right-handed batters. So, it's one of those gray areas where you might want to get some mini stacks, but stacking the whole Texas team just doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense because lefty-lefty matchup all the way down the board for the most part.
Yeah, and it stinks. This game has a nice total opening at 9. It's pretty darn close to a pick'em with Santiago coming in as a small road favorite. But as much as you want to pick on Santiago's fly ball tendencies, there just aren't a lot of bats to take advantage of it with. As you said, maybe hook a couple players, mini stack, maybe 2, 3 player stacks. But this isn't a 4-player stack type of offense just because you don't have 4 really good right-handed bats to stick in there together. The top of the order just isn't super enticing. The guys that we like are the ones that are going to bring power here, and they play well as one-offs. Guys like in the lefty-lefty matchup of Prince Fielder, a guy like Adrian Beltre. If Robinson Chirinos is rightfully catching as he should be, you get Chirinos against a left-handed pitcher. He's got some pop in his bat, but you don't need a stack for that to really get the bulk out of this big total. Most likely, it's going to come on a long ball. If you get the guy that hits that long ball with a couple runners on, you get the max benefit of that stack by getting the big score and being able to supplement or have him complement one of your other higher scoring stacks as well. So I definitely think that there's merit to grabbing some Rangers, just not doing it as a full-blown stack. And on the other side of things, I don't mind picking on Wandy Rodriguez, Cole Calhoun, a lefty, so it's not a great matchup, but we know Mike Trout hits everyone hard. We know Albert Pujols is back to living on whatever planet he was on during his peak years with the Cardinals because he's not from this world right now. David Freese hammers left-handed pitching. Even down-order guys like Chris Iannetta, if he's in the lineup, hit left-handed pitching hard. So if you're going to stack a side of this game, I'm going to say pick on the home pitcher, Wandy Rodriguez. He is the home underdog in this game with a big total, and you do have some bats that can really punish Wandy Rodriguez like Trout and Pujols, namely.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Mini stacks seem like the way to go, but maybe like stack your Trout Pujols, like you said. Maybe get Iannetta and Freeze down at the bottom, leave a little gap there, make your stacks a little bit different than everyone else's.
Yep.
Colorado and Arizona. It's not Coors Field, but it might be Coors Field light now. Because there's been some huge totals in that hot air in Arizona, even with the roof closed. I believe it's been a 9-run total. At least I know it's been at least 8.5 for the last 5 games, I believe. So big time totals here, regardless of who's pitching. Not a whole lot of good pitchers for either team. But Patrick Corbin, if you don't know who he is, pretty good young pitcher. He's going to be making his first start here this year. Had himself a fine year last year. He wasn't a guy who was overpowering, but he's a solid pitcher. So he's not a guy I'm really trying to pick on. Plus, we've seen Colorado more often than not struggle on the road. And just even in Chase Field, they just can't get it going, and it's just not been a consistent offense. So for me, once again, Arizona bats in play. Tomas, Peralta, obviously Paul Goldschmidt, really anyone that you can possibly get into this lineup. Obviously David Hale, a righty, so you don't have to worry about guys like Peralta going lefty-lefty and getting put down like 7th or 8th in the lineup. I mean, all these guys in play.
Yeah, David Hale, I mean, what can we say beyond he's a terrible pitcher? And the odds makers know what's up. Opens with a 9.5 total on a handful of sports books, and I expect it to stay at 9 or above. Corbin opening is a sizable betting favorite. Nice low price tags on both sites. There is some risk, obviously, starting a pitcher in a hitter-friendly environment like this in his first start back, but I mean, he's the type of low salary SP2 you like to grab with upside with your Greinke or your Harvey on tonight's slate, or Alex Wood if you really want to go crazy loading up on some of these bats and you want to fit your Goldschmidts in your lineup. Gotta like Corbin a little bit. Not going to go stacking against him. The Rockies just have not been good against left-handed pitching, and especially have not been good against lefties on the road. But if you do want some exposure to that high total from the Rocky side of things, never anything wrong with grabbing Nolan Arenado or Troy Tulowitzki. We know they hammer left-handed pitching, and we know their bats travel pretty well, unlike some other members of the Rockies lineup. So not going to stack them, but grabbing some one-offs can pay off in the desert. We know the park factors are quite favorable there.
Yeah, an important thing to consider and remember when you're making your stacks on FanDuel, if you do play Patrick Corbin because he's cheap, it's 4 total players from each team on FanDuel, not 4 hitters. So if you wonder why you can't put in your stack with Patrick Corbin, that's your reason. You got to get Corbin and 3 hitters. So maybe that's another way to go contrarian, because most people that are stacking aren't going to put the pitcher in there and go with three hitters. So
yep.
That's a good way to go. But with that, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our Optimizer Colossus and all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.